Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to It's Just Plain Cyber. Welcome to episode 2, and I hope you'll enjoy this episode as we have joined the last few episodes, or the last episode, sorry, and the future ones. But before we get started, let's do the little disclaimer. So protect ourselves. So my views and Steve's views during this episode or any future episodes are our views entirely and has no relation or connection to our current company or our past companies. So that's that out of the way, Steve. I get all the difficult jobs.
The formalities out of the way.
Yeah, I'll have to change that around so it's different. So let's start this one. So what are we going to talk about in this episode, Steve? Can you remember what we said we were going to talk about?
Yeah, I think we'll. So the first one, if anybody's checked it out, we just did a slight brief introduction in terms of what the format will be. This week, this month, will be a bit of a roundup of what we've been doing from our personal lives, because we also do want to connect with people on a personal level. Be good to hear what other people get up to in their personal lives. We're gonna look at the differences between information security and cyber security, which I think is always a big misconception. Then we're going to look at some hot topics, some recent news. There was a relatively big issue with one of the slightly larger casinos in Vegas. We're going to touch on, and then. Shall we say, and then just a couple of other bits as well. But I think mainly it's kind of we'll just ease everybody in.
Yeah, so it's like teaching people to swim. We're not going to put them in the deep end yet. We'll just let them
no.
around.
Well, please don't.
Around.
Don't do it to me either.
No. Okay then. So I'll make a start on this.
How Terry? How has your week been?
Oh, my week. Weeks, should I say? It's been busy at work, which is good. I went to, I think it was last Thursday, I think it was the 19th. I went to an e-crime conference in London. It's the mid-year one, even though it's towards the end of the year. And it's all different cybersecurity, information security people with all the expert knowledge talking about different topics such as cloud security, jobs in the industry, people at the companies, how they've dealt with different cyber attacks and things like that. And there's also little education sessions where you can go and do little workshops. That was really interesting. So I went down on the Wednesday night, came back on the Friday morning, full day on the Thursday, but that was good. What else did I do? Oh yes, we had a Peaky Blinders theme night at our golf club on Saturday.
Nice.
Yes, it was good. We're not going to brag about it, but I won best dressed male.
Here we go.
Yeah, I went as Alfie Solomons, and I had to try and grow some kind of a stubbly beard to make me look a little bit more like him.
I'll lend you some if you want, mate.
No, and I think after a week I got a little bit of stubble, but it was all right. Didn't play any golf this weekend. No. Which is a pity because it was a partner's weekend, as I call it. You know, giving all your time to your partner. Well, that was it. Kids still pain in the backside, but yeah, we got to carry on. We got to carry on and enjoy our world in this slightly colder as it gets colder now. What about yourself, Steve? Did you anything interesting?
Probably not quite as interesting as dressing up as Miss Solomons from Peaky Blinders. From my side, I mean, in my personal life, I'm a big fan of mixed martial arts. So I've been looking forward to. There was a big UFC event this weekend, which was in Abu Dhabi. Normally, I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the ones that are over in Vegas, but because Abu Dhabi are the other side of the world, it was a nice change actually because it started at 5 o'clock. I am also an Arsenal fan for my sins, football.
Oh, lost connection there, that bit. Maybe we'll have to edit that part out of the podcast.
Oh, I thought you were being serious. The less said about that, the better, albeit we'll take a draw. And then, but I also do like rugby. So I did catch the last half an hour of the rugby on Saturday after the UFC. And then Friday night, it was my eldest niece's 19th birthday, so I went out for a nice family meal with her. And Sunday, I cooked a nice roast dinner for my lovely fiance. So a bit of a best of both worlds, I think, really. But
that's a question there, and the more you cook for family or a larger family,
Yeah.
do you feel a Sunday roast is roughly the same as a Christmas dinner, just more people?
100%. I honestly, well, I'm not sure what angle you're coming from on that yet, but I don't know why people over egg cooking Christmas dinner. It's literally the exact same thing. You're just cooking more. Like it
Yeah.
really is. It's really. I cook a roast dinner every weekend without fail for my fiance, and cooking a Christmas dinner is no different at all. It's just more people. That like
Yeah.
I don't know why people make a big deal out of it, to be honest.
Well, that'll be we'll save them Christmas topics for the next episode.
Yeah, we will do. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
It's a little bit early at the moment. So
Do you know what? Last night, I also play for a pool team, and last night it's a Tuesday today for those, depending on what day you're listening. I play for a pool team on a Monday, and not only they've got their Halloween decorations up already, which is fair enough, but they started putting their Christmas decorations up last night. I'm not sure how I feel about that. We're still in October.
No, I think last year I lost the bet with my stepdaughter. I said because she was at university, I said, if you don't come here the first weekend in November, we're not putting the Christmas decorations up until the 10th of December. And she got here for the first weekend in November. So we had the Christmas decorations up the first week in November last year. No, I wasn't happy about that. But anyway, that's all the boring life stuff. Let's get on to what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about information security, cybersecurity first.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
So
for sure.
I will give you my brief view, and you can come from it from a career agency's point of view.
Yeah.
Now,
sure.
People who aren't in the business of information security or cybersecurity can see the both exactly the same. But we could also sit here and it says exactly what it does on the tin. Information security is protecting the company or your personal data. So my bank details, my children's names, my gender, my religion, if I have any special needs, that's all information. So that's all information that we need to keep protected. So your wife's details, your kids' details, all personal data, and when they link together, they link to our person. So that's in brief what information security is, and that's also around data protection and things like that. So in a business, you will hear information security more than you will hear cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity is what we all deal with in, day out. The internet. We can't get away from the internet. You can't get away from your phones. So cybersecurity is protecting of your internet access. So your again, you could look at it going to your bank details, but it's protecting you from losing that ability to go to your bank or clicking on an email you shouldn't be clicking on, and all these silly links you have in an email, and making sure you're protected to do that. That's why when you see companies doing cyber awareness training, that's the company I work for do it in two ways. So you have your cyber training and you have your information security with data protection. And it's making sure that when you get an email, you look at it, you assess the email, you make sure it's great, and if it's not, then you move away. And this also goes, and this is where in the radio term, this is a good segue. Is that the right word using it, Steve? Segue.
Yeah, we'll go with that. 100%.
Yeah. This is a good segue, is as well as you personally protecting your data and protecting your company's data, by which it's also on the career side. Now, there is loads of careers in the security world. If we call it the security world as a whole, there's loads of careers. It's not just, as we briefly mentioned in the first episode, it's not just your kids that hang around in the basement doing all the funky stuff with their code. It's it's your analysts, your business security people. So if I go over to you, Stephen, what do you see from a recruitment agency of the different roles within the two areas, or security as a whole?
Well, I've got a couple of quick questions for you, if you don't mind, just off the back of what you were asking there, just in terms of going back, which is obviously going to make things a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
If we take two, I'll pull two roles out of thin air
Yeah.
here now. So if you take a security engineer that's going to be hands-on with
Yeah.
firewalls, VPNs, malware, things like that, would you class that as cybersecurity or information security?
Well, in the business, it will be called information security. So that person will be part of the information security team.
Yeah.
And they will be looking at the firewalls, protecting of the business.
Yeah.
So they will be seen. So if I'm employing as group head of information security, someone in the department, I'll be employing them as an engineer, an analyst.
Yeah.
And their job is to analyze our current environment and make sure it's fine. When it comes to the cyber side, you're looking at people that may be in between IT and information security. And cyber you could say it as it's the new funky word for the security outside of your business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I see it. So from what you're saying, that
Yeah.
person would be in information security.
Yeah.
But he could also be seen as someone who works in the cyber, which is just the internet.
And the other role I had in mind, just to a little bit of clarity, because again, there are so many different facets to the information or cybersecurity world, which again we'll touch on in a minute. Penetration testers. Now they could be internal or external. They could be working for you via an external source, or you can. I mean, the larger companies sometimes have internal penetration testers. Would you consider them information security or cybersecurity?
They're definitely not. Well, when I say they're definitely not, they're not information security because penetration test. You could put them if you were creating a cyber team.
Yeah.
Then your penetration testers or your auditors or your people like that, they would most probably fall into that team. So, and majority of companies have outsourced penetration testers because you don't want that phrase of marking your own homework. So,
yeah, there is that. Yeah, that's
So there's that part. So, as in my position, I wouldn't employ someone to be a pen tester. I would do that completely outside of it.
Yeah, yeah. It does tend to only like be the really large companies that have internal, because they'll have so many different probably offices and hubs or external companies they work with that they'll probably be working with there. But yeah, going back to your, I've totally gone off topic from what you initially asked me. So what was your question initially to me in terms of from a career perspective? Sorry.
What roles, what different types of roles do you see in the GRC world? Now you're going to explain what GRC is, because I've said that to my missus and she said, "What's that mean?" And I told her it's government risk and control. So you can elaborate. I like using these big words. Elaborate on your GRC recruitment, because that's another area of security, and that's information security, not cyber.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always one of those conversations I have with people that I'm kind of reticent to use the word non-technical, because there are technical abilities and you do need an underlying knowledge of the technical infrastructure, but it tends to be a lot more policy based. If you look at, for example, a lot of most UK companies are aligned to a framework called ISO 27001, which, depending on the level of people that are listening to this, it's it's basically a policy. It's basically people's data secure, making sure
It's a framework, yeah.
it's very much a framework, but it kind of covers the entire company. So there will be there's obviously a risk register involved. There are controls involved, but they will also talk to the more technical guys, the engineers, the analysts, things like that. It's kind of an overarching high level enterprise level framework, which should do, at least in theory, keep the company secure. That's kind of the area that I work in. Prior to that, I worked in architecture, and again, architecture is kind of, it's like almost a sidestep to it, because again, they have to high level and low level.
Architecture. I was when I went in, I worked for a company 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than a company called CGI, and they're not graphics. They're not a graphic designing company. They're a consultancy company.
Yeah, no, it's not computer generated images. No,
yeah. And I worked them for a few years, and the first consultancy role I got with them was working as a security architect.
Nice.
And it was way over my head. It was so deep and technical that I found it really hard. You had to do it anyway. It's part of the consultancy, but I found that part of security. So you could even say security then. Security covers information security and cyber security. It's all security.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just completely just written off what I've just said in the front then, haven't I? In the first two.
Yeah. Going back, yeah. So going back to what we were saying, I've lost what I was saying. Yeah. So obviously ISO. If we concentrate on UK firms, obviously ISO is the new one. There was a new update of it introduced in 2022. I think the previous one to that was 2013. I think it's kind of been a long time for an update.
Yeah,
but was it 2018
as well?
Yeah, there's been and really there's not a huge amount of difference between the two from what I understand, other than it's just moving with the times a little bit. There's some more controls and stuff like that. Then obviously companies, if they've got a more overseas, particularly America, they might align to things like NIST. The difference between NIST and ISO, other than the controls and things involved, is with a company can get ISO certified. You don't get NIST certified. NIST is it's I don't want to use the word tick box. It's not a tick box, because if anything, it's more in depth than ISO. But you're like the company I work for is ISO certified. You can't get NIST certified. But either way, there are other countries around the world that will align to different frameworks. And then if you want to go down the MOD route, you've got HMV, SPF, and there's loads and loads of things. And I've worked with aviation companies that have the CAA, CAF, and yeah, there's so many different frameworks, but the main one in the UK for sure is ISO 27001, which again, if we go back to where we started in terms of the careers, you'll often find, particularly through the GRC market, whether it's people that are coming out of university or people that are coming from another area of technology that want to move into GRC, they'll probably start looking at things like, your ISO 27001 lead auditor or lead implementer, certification, things like that. Gives you a good idea of how infrastructures work, the way to look into them. What are you looking for? There's a phrase that's used all the time in information security, and it's what looks good. And that's being able to look at a dashboard or a risk register and say, look, the information we're receiving from these guys, is this what we should be seeing, and is it not what looks good? From the company, looking at the risk appetite for the company, because again, that changes as well, and you'll be able to probably talk about that a bit more than I will. A company's risk appetite will probably change what needs to be done in terms of an audit and implementation, the changes that things that happen with the company. Maybe that's something you could touch on in terms of risk appetite, things like that, because again, that could be compared to a real world scenario as well.
We could, and I could, but I'd be taking up another 35-40 minutes talking about that. And we don't want people to fall asleep yet. We want people to get a flavor of security or information security, cyber security, or security as the whole, before we go into deeper. And based on what people feel or give us feedback on, we can go deeper into things like that. Because you just brought up another thing which okay, it's along with careers, but it may be another topic we can talk about later, is about the different kinds of qualifications you get within security.
Yeah, 100%.
You're talking about the auditor and all that. So that could be something we can look at. But
that's two very different certifications as well. The auditor and the implementer are very different.
Yeah. But that gives people a little flavor of the differences. But depending on who you speak to, and again, this is just mine as Steve's view. It's not the official law Bible of what is right and wrong. It's just mine as Steve's view.
I'm certainly not an expert.
No, we don't want to be an expert. I like trying to find things out and working through mistakes and things like that. So, next topic: risk management and third-party risk.
Yes.
Now,
big thing in a minute.
So, if we were to ask the world what is a risk and what is a third-party risk,
I
think people would know what a risk is, And with that, again, without going into too much detail, people know what a risk, but maybe not familiar with what a third party risk is. I don't know if you want to kick off this one, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I mentioned to yourself in terms of this seems to be a hot topic in information security at the moment. A lot of people looking at their supply chain and third-party risk management. Again, it comes through. There's a lot of companies. Okay, so I deal with a lot of companies who then deal with other companies that are either supplying them things or you're supplying them things, and there's a transaction between the two, whereby there has to be a risk analysis in terms of who's keeping the data that you are sharing with each other secure. Now it's kind of strange that I'm kind of doing the information security side of things and you're going to make it
No. This is the whole part. This is the whole part of it.
Yeah,
it's your view and my view. So
no, of course, it's that exchange of data. In a very high level overview, the exchange of data and who is keeping that secure and what parameters you putting in place to make sure that any data you are sharing with each other is secure, and are the products you're using secure? How are you doing that? And then how do those two come together? That's my view of it. Anyway.
And if we look at it, because I like doing this and I'll do this throughout all the podcasts, if we put it in the average Joe's mind, what a third party is. So I buy a car breaks down, I send it to the garage fix part of it, and then they can't fix a certain area, so they send that car away to somebody else to fix. Now there's the third party. 1, 2, 3. There's the third party. Now, as a consumer, I would hope that the garage who I've took my car to and who's sending it off to get fixed is respectable garage that I can rely on. So I've got to be comfortable that that process is something I'm happy with. So in the real world, that's what a kind of third party risk is. In the business world, a third party risk is something that I, as a company, cannot control. So when I sign up to say somebody's I'm a construction and I sign up for this company to build a bridge for me, right? I've done my due diligence on that company. They've got the requirements I want. Now that company now is I think they call it subcontract that to another company to do. Now you've got to be in a position that you've got to feel comfortable that third party is going to do exactly the same as in risk management as you've got with this other company. And that is a hard thing to do with a spreadsheet. It is a hard thing to do, and there are companies out there now, and there are people with the knowledge out there now that can help you follow that whole chain and then help you with it. Because that also facts, if that third party has a data breach or loses data or is hacked and has malware in their system, you've got to be comfortable enough that they've got a defense in place that'll stop it feeding back towards you.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's the third part of managing of third parties. Soon as you send it off to Fred Blogg's company to deal with it, you need to know that Fred Blogs is dealing with it. And then if Fred Blogs decides to go and put it over to Susan, then you need to be made aware that they're dealing with that.
It's not coming back to you. Yeah, exactly that. But why has that become all of a sudden a big thing in the industry? I'm kind of just throwing this at you out of nowhere, but it does seem like all of a sudden companies are saying, right, we need to look at our supply chain, we need to look at our third party risk. It would seem like a very standard practice to put in place, but all of a sudden a lot of the clients I'm working with are looking at third party risk, supply chain, operational resilience, which is another area we can touch on another time.
But I think it's mainly down to the cost. If you can spread the work out to different companies, it reduces the cost. So if I pay you X amount to sort out my bridge, and then you go, okay, then I'm going to third party it to other companies to spread the cost out. Now, back in the olden days, it was me dealing with you, and that was it. And there was, in fact, to be honest with you, my view is, in the olden days, I dealt with you, and I didn't have a clue what you did.
Right.
So my attitude there was, as long as you come back and tell me you've done my job, I don't care what you do with who you outsource it to, as long as you come back and do that. But now, because there's been so many problems with third parties, the company that starts the process needs to be in a position where they're comfortable the whole way through.
Yep.
And not just say, you know, not do blinkers and just say, right, as long as you do what I asked you to do, I don't care what you do with how you do it, just do it. And that's where the worry comes from.
Yeah, and I suppose, and then if you know that there is a standard that is holding everybody that you're working with in place, you kind of, it's not in the laps of the gods, so to speak, but you understand that if everybody's following the same standard protocols, it means that we all should, in theory, be safe. However, that probably brings up onto our last topic.
Yeah.
Which
There's another segue.
I was. Yeah, no, that was a good segue. I'm going to take credit for that. But it was something I wanted to talk about because it was something that I had been following when it happened. It was a few weeks ago now, to be fair. But if we're not going to talk about it now, we're not going to talk about it at all. It was the big well, MGM wasn't the only casino that got hacked with ransomware. I say hacked, got breached. There was a number of reasons why I was following it. What for a start, one, my old employers are some of the senior managers at said casino, or rather the nightclub that's part of the casino.
Wait, hang on, Steve. You've just said casino, but you actually released the name of it before we started it.
Oh no, it was
right.
It was the MGM. I wasn't trying to hide their secrecy. It's all open source. But yeah, but then also it was just intriguing to me because the more I read about it, it seemed that it very much came from a very preventable situation that was essentially, I mean, it wasn't even phishing, was it? It was, or would you call it phishing? It was credentials, wasn't it? Essentially, wasn't it?
Yeah, stolen credentials.
Yeah. So I wanted to really get your thoughts on that, because that, again, I mean, that is, we touched on it on the first episode when I said, I'm always telling my dad, don't click this link, don't click that link. That's essentially where it came from, and that's a huge gap in someone's network if somebody can steal someone's credentials that easily from a company that big.
Yeah, and it's most, I say a good 80% of breaches start from a human. Now, this, in reference to the MGM one, what I believed happened, and again, this is just my view, is credentials were stolen. Now, whether this was stolen via the dark web or someone had left a post-it note on a train or something like that, it was stolen. Now, you could say the way they stolen it was via a phishing. So they may have got an email that's saying that your account has expired, please enter your details.
Yeah.
And they've gone in there.
We've all had them.
Yeah. But, or what could have happened is, and when I say I've seen not to the level of that, but I've seen it where a user will get an email. It'll say, click on this link, you click on it, enter your credentials, and then the screen will say not found, or the page will say not found. That person innocently will say, I'll send this over to one of my colleagues and ask them, could you have a go and see if you do it? And what happens then is you get this old-fashioned chain mail that goes through where somebody can't get the right thing to work, so they pass it on, and sooner or later the right credentials will be available. So a director will have it, or someone who has admin privileges, and then they get it, and then all the floodgates open. And it starts with something so small as that. As someone doing something innocently, and I guarantee that person who started it didn't even know what they were doing, or was just so innocent. Like, and this is why we do training, and this is why we do security training and things like that, to get people aware and to people to understand. And we all know casinos exist. It's not something that it's hiding away, and we don't know. If somebody says, "Oh, I do this business," and people go, "Oh, I've never heard of that." Everybody knows a casino. Everybody knows what money's involved in a casino.
Yeah.
So if casinos can have a breach, and anybody can have a breach, there was nothing that happened there that couldn't have happened to a company that had 5 employees.
100%.
Nothing can happen. So this is why I, in my role and in my business, I try and really force and promote security and being aware of what's going on. And I could sit here and say, "Oh, they should have done this, you should have done that." Well, I could have told them they should have done something and they would have got through still. So there's no difference. It's just how that company react, and how they deal with it. And we all make mistakes, but if they picked up themselves and said, "Right, okay, we're going to correct this," then they'll be in a better place. But it's happened, so we can't really dwell on it too much.
No, and they are getting more and more sophisticated as well. I've seen a couple of instances online where they've spoken about people within a company have received an email saying that they've failed a phishing exercise, but that email was the phishing exercise. It was the email saying they'd failed a phishing exercise. So
I sometimes sometimes feel sorry for employees, or even just your person on the other end of the internet, is because they're getting so tough and so hard to recognize to the person without any knowledge.
Yeah,
you're more likely going to click on something that you shouldn't have clicked on, and it's hard. So I'm running phishing campaigns at my current company, but I'm trying to make the email not be so not saying so
not be
hard.
too secretive.
Yeah, it can't. You want them to click on it and then go, "Oh, yeah, silly idiot! I knew that," rather than, "Well,
I had
that
no
just
idea.
that just looked." And you can only go to a certain level with people. You can't expect them to be techie wizards on the internet. So if you're working for a company that just it owns a warehouse and has 3 or 4 staff, you can't really go too deep because it's pointless. You've got to keep it relevant to what your business is.
No, and as an employer, you can't really be seen to be trying to catch your staff out constantly because it's not going to build morale.
I do. I try to.
Remind me not to get a job with you.
Yeah, especially directors. If you can get a director name on that list of who's clicked, then that's it. That's your pride. You go home.
No, it's crazy the more you delve into it, and there's evidences every single day whenever I'm looking at the news and stuff of things going like I said.
But again, Steve, this is the topic we can just carry on rabbiting on about.
Oh, forever. But yeah,
and this is what we want to do. We want to make it just a nice little banter between ourselves, 100%, nice little talk. Not too. I don't want people come and say, "Oh, Terry, that was wrong. That was completely wrong." Or Steve, you don't know what you're talking about.
It's all opinions. Yeah. It's all opinions. And I'm a recruiter. I'm certainly not an expert on these things. I just talk to people about them. It's fine. Terry, and I am throwing this at you a little bit at the end, and I'm happy to go first, but just because I wanted to end on a little bit of a humorous note. Are you a fan of random facts?
It depends how random they are.
Well, just
I've got a stepdaughter that constantly comes in and gives me random facts that I have no interest in.
I do it to my missus all the time.
Go on then.
I just thought we'd end on just a relatively humorous random fact. Crocodiles have been around longer than trees. There you go.
Is that it?
That was it.
You don't get out.
Oh no! Oh, do you know what? And I've actually messed it up. It's actually sharks. I've messed it up. It's sharks have been around longer than trees.
Right. There's one little quote for me. Passwords are like underwear. You would never share it with anybody else. You constantly changing it, and you wouldn't show it to the public.
Wow.
There you go.
That's
a nice way to end on.
That's a way to end the episode. Don't mess up a fact like I did.
No, don't do your stand-up comedian role, Steve.
No, I wouldn't do a very good job in that.
I think we'll end it there.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But I hope everyone enjoyed it. It's been pretty good. We'll build up from there. Any comments from anybody online? Anyone that watches it, listens to it, LinkedIn, Spotify, anything like that? Let us know. Any topics you want to discuss? Give us a shout. Obviously, Terry's available as well. Anything you want to sign off on, Terry?
Yeah, I've got a few people, a few experts other than me and Steve, because we are experts. A few experts that have said they're happy to come on. They're happy to come on and join us in a future episode. So they will all be happening as well in the near future.
Amazing. Right.
So everyone, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. See you later.